But we've been drinking these things for so long. I remember when I was young. Now, I don't think it's still there, so I can mention that one. Huh? The Mirinda and the others.
Mirinda is still there.
It's still there. So the point is, we've been taking these fizzy drinks for so long. Can't be the other one, Charlie. I've been enjoying it. I don't want to mention names here, but these are things that we've eaten for so long. So what's the big deal right now? Why the fuss?
So ask yourself what risk you have now. So because the studies show 14%, what that means is that if you were going to live for 85 years, remove 14% from it because of that study or because of your habit.
The consumption.
Dave, I have a question.
So, okay.
No, you answer.
This is really what makes it dangerous because people don't see the risk today.
It's not immediate.
But I'm going to be 85 years old. If you remove 10% of it, it's 8.5 years old. So I would be 77.5. And you see, the studies are showing that in low and middle income countries, which Ghana is included, 75% of all the deaths from chronic non-communicable diseases are coming from low and middle income countries because of the issues we are raising. We cannot control, we cannot regulate. People also choose a bad habit.
But that's what my challenge is. I mean, that's what my challenge is. And if you join us on Facebook right now, this is the meal you suddenly enjoyed at a restaurant.
Processed meat.
This is processed. So you hold on. Listeners, join us on Facebook right now. When I said he was priding himself for having eaten, this was just 2 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago. So join us on Facebook on Love in the Morning. I pray and hope that the name of the restaurant or the facility doesn't come in. But if we can go back and pause on it. So you realize that he has, let's go back again. Let's go back to the plate, the meal he was going to have, that English breakfast. Where there was, so let me just move on. I'm describing it. So there was sausages, so this is a meal. So you realize that there is some, what do you call it, processed, it's not fresh cow, processed, what do you call it, mushrooms. Then there's the sausages, then there's the baked beans.
All processed.
And then there's potato.
And then probably tomatoes.
Tomatoes there.
Tomato is the only one that is.
I think it's the tomatoes and the eggs, the poached egg.
The poached eggs.
Fresh.
And then the toasted bread.
So it's also white bread, I guess.
It was wheat bread.
Okay.
So point is this: all these things, almost all these things are processed, and they have their own, what do you call it, effects on the human organs and the body in its entirety. So when you do this 2 or 3 times a week, for 10 years or 15 years, then you know what you're doing to yourself.
Exactly.
Dave, but the question I wanted to ask, you were talking about when you were a kid, you were drinking all these fizzy drinks.
Yeah.
And if you have noticed, in Ghana, for instance, when you are eating stuff like corned beef and all these things, you are considered elite or something.
Yes.
So these things are dangerous to us, we all know. The same way cigarette is dangerous. And then they put on it, cigarette smoking is harmful to your health.
Yes.
Why are we not doing that for people who are consuming these products too?
That's a very good question.
We are on the road. We're actually on the road to doing that. So what FDA is doing currently is developing nutrient profiling system. We have the labeling, which there's mandatory labeling already, but we are not at the place where you have to say that you can use red coded label for dangerous stuff and maybe green on an orange or yellow for things that are in between. We are not there yet, but we are on the road. This is where we want to get to. So that things that have certain levels of, let's say, salt, sugar, and oil, it is labeled clearly and to say it is dangerous to your health. Now, you don't get there easily because the food industry is also there to,
they'll fight you.
They'll fight the system.
It's a business.
That is really...
And that's to add to what he just said. I think about a week ago, we had a meeting. There's a committee in place. There's a team in place looking at this food processing model with some guys in Legon, the nutrition profiling. And what I've observed, like what he rightly put it, if you go into some countries, especially in the South American, the European countries, a lot of these foods are already labeled. The color-coded label is there. So when I enter the supermarket, I know a food that is labeled green. That traffic light code is the simplest I can use as an example. So something that is labeled green to tell you that is a healthier option. Something that is labeled yellow, of course, be careful.
In between.
I saw one. They were going to buy a yam, and then on the label they had the history of yam, what it does, what you can use it for, and at the bottom it says yam can be harmful to your health.
So based on the question you asked, let me just add on and say, so for example, and we'll talk about the diseases because that's what my issue is: the type 2 diabetes, the cancers, and then the cardiovascular diseases or the heart conditions that is killing people. When I go to the supermarket right now, I go to the places and I want to buy. If I pick these ultra processed foods or processed foods, what should I be looking for? That should tell me until the red flags and that information that you say people have meetings on will come to fruition. When I go and I'm picking it, what should I be looking for? Which one should I avoid? Which one can I say, okay, I can manage for now?
So mostly look at the labels.
Yeah.
Of course.
Or in the ingredients.
In the ingredients, in the labels. Sometimes when we look at labels, we're only interested in, how do you call it?
Expiry dates.
Expiry dates. But that's not all. You need to look at the nutrition profile or the nutrient profile of the food. And there are a lot of high fructose corn syrup, how do you call it? Some unsaturated fats. These are all the victims. Once you're able to identify any of them in the labels, then it tells you that you have to be careful.
But for the layman, when you pick these things, exactly.
That is why we are pushing gradually.
And E20 and all these
I understand.
Things.
That's why we are pushing gradually to that labeling.
Easier to read, to understand one. Currently, what the mandatory ones is to say that this has this amount of carbohydrates, of which some amount is sugar. And when you see the sugar, then you mean that this is the pure sugar that you want to avoid. Then they also mention saturated fats, the level of fat of which some is saturated. So they also mention, nowadays we also say trans fat. It also has been mentioned. But like you're saying, the lay person may not even understand what these things are.
Yeah, well, they trick us.
And then in some instances they tell you that this has no additives, has no sugar. This is pure. Is there anything like that on the market that can stay for like a month?
It is possible to do it. It won't stay longer. It won't stay longer. So we have some drinks and all that, no sugar added, apart from the juice itself from the fruit, and they've not added any preservatives. It will not stay beyond 1 week.
And you know them.
The blue skies.
Yes.
But the ones that we see on the market that can be on the shelves for like 6 months or even more, but they tell you that it has no sugar, has no this, has no that. Blah, blah.
These are natural. No, it's not. These are labeling issues. Most of them are labeling issues. Of course, the marketers and the food production companies will have to use those catchy words to get you into the buying. But reality is that we have an example of a fruit juice we know around that beyond a week is no more useful. So that should tell you what is right.
But shouldn't it be a crime if you tell me that there are no sugars?
In fact, it is. But regulation is how to enforce. Even FDA, how to enforce the rules that they have, the current rules they have in place. It's a problem because you see people are importing things. People are smuggling things into the country and then they are on the shelves. You see, you have to go through to every store and then make sure and then do your inventory. But it is very difficult.
And if you speak to some of them, they will tell you that one of the challenges they have is when they bring a sample. And you do the testing on the sample and you approve it. So the subsequent ones that they bring in.
So I can help you a little on that. They call it the batch standardization.
Okay.
So you bring a batch, I do the standardization of the batch. A particular batch, 1 or 2 samples of the batch, I standardize it randomly. The presumption is that you're going to continue to do the same for the subsequent batches, or even for the same batch. But of course, the only way you can pick these things out is to go for what we call surveillance, or you go for monitoring. And so once we have standardized, or we have qualified the one that you brought to me, I should go to the shop and see whatever is in there to be able to tell whether they are meeting the same expectation or the criteria of what I analyze. But of course, last 2 weeks or so, I was with Standards Board and I mentioned this. And one of the things I hear them say is that, well, the challenge we are having is even the ones that has not been standardized and approved are more than enough to keep us running around. And so until we are done with those ones that have not been standardized and approved, we don't even have a lot of time to now go and look for the ones that we have already standardized, whether they are following the standards
or not.
So you get a point.
So there's a joke